All right, it's our last class of 2019, but we're going to have some classes next year. So this has been a big year for me putting this out there, and I'm hoping it was a big year for a lot of you in receiving and learning and communing with our group. And I'm just curious. I'm wanting to connect with some of you before our break. Like, how has this year been? And I'm going to bring Flavia on to talk about her year too. But type in the chat a little nice little summary box of how this year has been and in relationship to taking these classes too and what you've learned. So let's bring Flavia on. So here, let me. Are you muted? Can I unmute you? Oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Flavia, if you could introduce yourself and tell us how this year has been for you. It's been a huge year.
Yeah, it has been a crazy year. Wow. I've been working with some of you in the spiritual part, so I'm getting to know more people too personally, which is pretty cool. This year was like, I don't even know how to define it. It was just like the craziest year of my life, maybe. We had Pans that was a sudden onset, was pretty crazy, and you were with us the entire time, Angelica, and just basically like saying, no, I'm here. I'm not going to drop you. At one point I thought you were going to just drop us because our situation is just so crazy, and I said, it's just like energetically so many things were happening to us that was pretty bad. And I thought at one point that we were never going to get out of that situation that we were in, especially with the Pans and my daughter. And some days I was even talking to someone else that some days I felt like not even living anymore. I said, I don't believe I should, I don't believe in any of that. It wasn't suicidal per se, like I'll take my own life. But I said, okay, if you could just take me out of here, I'd appreciate it, because I don't have any more energy for this, and I think I can help my family more if I am outside of this whole mess and just praying for everybody. And was a real feeling that I had. I think I even shared with you one time, Angelica. We did one session, and I said I just did not want to be here anymore because it's just so bad. But then what I had the realization is that I started having people praying, and Tim was doing some spiritual work. I had people doing some spiritual work in Brazil too. And then I realized that I was not doing the work myself. And I was actually doing a counter work because I was always so worried, so fixated on everything that could go wrong, that was actually increasing the negativity in my life like tenfold and not helping. And I was like, I told you, I was like a consumer of darkness. That was the term I used to feel. And I felt, I just, it hit me. I said, my God, if I believe that homeopathy is energy medicine because it's the energy imprint of the medicine, right? And I believe wholeheartedly in homeopathy. And then all of a sudden I'm reading all these books talking about homeopathy, and Lynn McTaggart talking about how quantum physics work. If I believe in all that, what am I doing in my day-to-day to help? Which is basically nothing. I'm just like here thinking about the worst possible case scenarios for everything, and just basically anticipating negativity. So the biggest shift for me happened when I realized that, and I start actively doing more of the energy work. And that's when things really started taking a turn. And I'm obviously, we also had the support, because I would ask anybody who would believe in any kind of energy work whatsoever, or pay anybody to do spiritual work. So, oh my God, I'm paying all these people. I don't do anything. I'm actually hindering their work because I'm just spreading darkness around me. And that's when I just said, no, what happened? What happened to all this knowledge I had? I have to apply. So I started doing energy work for our daughter. I started engaging my husband in praying with me and having like the power of two, at least two people. And then I started reading about the prayer, the power of 8 groups. And then I said, my goodness, this is so wonderful. But at that time, I was just so engrossing in healing my daughter. And that's when I started having just thoughts that this would be a good group, a good thing for our group. So when I felt better and things start falling into place for me, that's when I thought about creating this group. So.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit more about, like, I don't know, just the transformation. Like, you went from the worst to a pretty good situation in a course of a year.
Yeah.
I would say that. But, like, what's an example of how bad it was, and now an example of, like, how good things are?
Well, when she had the onset, we did not. We thought it was completely psychological. So she started having this. She would ask us to look in the mirror because she couldn't see her face. Her face was distorted. So I would look in the mirror saying, "Oh, your face is fine." And we thought she was having some kind of body dysmorphia disorder. And I read all about it. But she started getting worse and worse and worse. And I was thinking, at that time, we had just stopped the Lyme treatment because she's so much better. We were doing a very intensive herbal treatment, weaned her off. And then in the space of, I think, 2 months of stopping the treatments, she started having these crazy symptoms. My daughter, my 11-year-old daughter. And I was attributing, oh, it's puberty hitting. I can't even believe that I wasn't thinking about pants or anything. But then she started seeing just transfiguration in the mirror, and then it kept getting worse and worse. So her entire body was going crazy, and she started covering her head, and she would walk around with a towel covering her head, and she started having just terrible crises and flares. And that's when I posted in some of the groups I knew her symptoms, and they said, oh my goodness, just sounds so much like PANS, because she had anorexia, she wasn't eating, and she started having the pretty bad fits, terrible fits. And then I was, because of Lyme disease, we had a 5-year span of Lyme disease. My husband got paralyzed with Lyme disease, and he got pretty sick. My kids got pretty sick. And I had a wonderful therapist, and she told me, you need to talk to Angelica because she really helped a family member, and I think she can help you. And that's when I decided to call you. But I knew about you like years before, now I kick myself in the butt and said, oh my God, why didn't I call Angelica at the onset of Lyme? It would have saved me so much aggravation, But I was resistant. I thought that homeopathy would not be strong enough for Lyme disease. I had so many misconceptions in my mind. So then I call you, Angelica, and we start working. And then my daughter, she should show a little improvement, but then she'd really get bad. And her flares were getting more and more violent, to the point that one day she was getting out of control entirely. So we have this child walking around with a towel covering her head, just screaming like a maniac. And then she started breaking everything in the basement that we had in the basement, and threw all the books around. And then she went upstairs, and she continued to be completely possessed. I thought it felt like a possession. Then we start praying. My husband and I start praying. It was really late at night, and she kept getting worse and worse. The more I prayed, she got worse. And then she broke the door herself. She was a strong girl, broke the entire door, and then she put her foot through the door, and it was just like completely out of control. And my husband said, we can't do anything. I was listening to people doing mulching, doing the Benadryl, I was trying, I threw everything at the child, nothing would work. Then we had to call, 911, and they came. And then because of psychiatric issues, she was so out of control, the police came to take her. And it was just the most traumatizing thing ever. But they were very nice. We were mom, thank God. But here you have this child, and it was November, it was super cold, going out with just towel covering her head, with 2 police officers escorting her, screaming that I was terrible mother, the worst, that the parents were the worst parents ever. And nobody took her seriously, thank God. So she was in the hospital screaming the entire time. She screamed the entire night and the entire day, disturbed everybody in the emergency room. And then they when they finally came to talk to me, the psychiatric team and everything, they gave her meds and she calmed down. And at that point, I said, I'm not going to take her home unless I can handle her, because she's pretty strong. I was afraid that she was going to hurt herself or us. But then she calmed down with the meds. And then my husband and I had a conversation with her. I said, listen, if you understand, you're going to go back home only if you follow certain rules and if you're not violent. And she agreed to that. But she was, at the onset of PANS, I remember one night I was hugging her and she wasn't there. And I said, oh my God, she left. She's not here. I could not reach her. I could not reach that child. Should have no emotions whatsoever. Should not say that she loved us. She was gone. The child was gone. She left. And I was desperate. I did not know what to do. But then she came back from the hospital, and then we work intensively together, you and I, Angelica, and you taught me how to use my intuition and start using remedies. And sometimes I was just like giving remedies to her every 5 minutes, and slowly she started coming back. But was pretty intense.
It was intense. I mean, and there were so many variables. There's a lot of ancestral stuff coming through. There was your house that was bad. At one point, I remember muscle testing flower essences, and this flower essence kept coming up, and it was celebration. And I was I was like, why celebration? And then finally, you're like, oh, celebration. That's the town we wanted to move to. And you moved to or close to Celebration.
Very close.
Which is in Florida.
It was like, I don't know if it was just like the towel covering her head, and then she had a pillow covering her head, and the flares are so intense, and the knife, and sometimes she'd run around with a knife, and it was really really dreadful. But she slowly, I could see mini shifts of the remedies, and then I could tell a specific flare. I could just almost sense the energy that was in that flare and give a specific remedy, then she'd switch to another remedy. So gone, and so I would give another one. But every time she'd be coming back, and then she calmed down considerably, but should have just episodes that were pretty intense, but then they would go away, so the flares would last less time. They would be, but then it became clear to me I had to move. I had to go away from Vermont. Vermont wasn't working for us. It was too isolating, too depressive for her. And then we decided to come to Florida, which is familiar to us. Is where I met my husband. The sunshine, we felt like she needed the sunshine. And sure enough, the moment she arrived in Florida, she was like, I sent a picture of her to my husband, and he said, why, how could you take a picture of her? She let me take a picture of her. The moment you arrived, the first lunch, she was already much better. Nothing like recovered or anything like that. And she lost her voice. She would speak with a guttural voice. She sounded like a monster. She lost her voice. Her voice became deep, like a man's voice. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was a slew of things. It's almost like a blur. I feel like I'm so tired.
It was a lot. And it was definitely a lot for me too. I probably can only take a case like that once or twice a year.
Itchiness. Remember the itchiness too. Then she became much better. Considerably better from all symptoms. Next thing you know, this child is having electrical shocks throughout her entire body.
So it's like Herring's law, where the inflammation came out onto the skin level.
Yes. Yeah, every night, clockwork. She would start like around 8, would last the entire night until like 7 in the morning. And she described as being an electrical shock, electrocuting her over, and she'd be dancing around. And that went on for months. And I said, and like would stop for a few days and then would continue. At one point, I tried antibiotics. I tried prednisone, whatever, I don't know the name, but I tried that and would stop, and sure enough would come back. And it was in one of these crises that I had the GNRS, and then I said, you know what, we're going to be up all night anyway, so why don't we watch Just With Me, this program that talks about the brain and everything else. And she said, sure. I said, oh, she's saying sure, you know. And she watched and she started implementing the program, and I feel like that brought her a level of control over herself that she needed it, that she, like, I'm taking care of my healing now, and that helped her tremendously. So
Right.
that was like
So in the
last.
beginning, when you were coming to me, like, you heal me, it was still chaotic. And then it got to the point where I taught you to use your intuition, and then that brought it down. And then once you taught her to start healing herself, then things really started to shift.
Yeah.
So it was like this whole ownership of
Yeah.
managing this issue and healing the issue.
Yes, and she's becoming like very much like, oh, somebody asked what program did she watch? She watches the DNRS, Dynamic Neuro Retraining System. And she started becoming like very much like Miss Positive. So she doesn't want anything that's negative, literature even. She's reading now the Boxcar Children books because she said they are wholesome, Mom. Nothing else is wholesome for my age, and I'm rereading them. And she refuses to watch negative stuff, and she talks about the energy all the time. She said, no, we're not going to do this. We're watching a Christmas movie. And it was dark and depressive. So why are we doing this to ourselves? She said, no, let's watch something happy. I said, okay, let's watch something happy. It's almost like she became the barometer of the family for what's positive now. You know, she still has her moments, but they're moments. And I can tell, okay, she's having a Bartonella energy. Mainly for her is like a Bartonella energy, a strap energy, and Lachesis energy. I can tell. And she said, I think I need some remedies. And I just give her the remedies. She's 11. She's turning 12 in February. Somebody just asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so you mentioned the spiritual work and the energetic work. So in the DNRS, is there anything else? So you're doing prayer and you're doing the meditations. What else? Yeah. And what is it that, so you have offered to our group to have a healing circle, the Deep Dive Healing Circle. Tell us more about the spiritual healing aspect that you helped integrate.
Well, the thing is, when I saw so many other moms, you know, having that desperate feeling, and I could so relate. I said, oh my God, I just so seeing them, what was happening to me. Obviously, we all have different problems, different nature, you know, we all have our own private struggles, and no two cases are the same, but I could so relate to that desperation of not knowing what to do, especially during flares. And I feel like the energy issue was missing because it was missing for me. I can almost trace back, you know, it can be a coincidence, you never know, but I can trace back the fall of my family when I start embracing the negative in the world, and I start, oh no, I need to be informed. I need to know about these issues. I need to know about their food supply. I need to watch all these documentaries. So it's just like I say, it was an immersion in negativity. And it's difficult because you also don't want to be like this naive person that doesn't know what's going on in the form, right?
Explain that more. So you actually, when you started to kind of over-educate yourself, but in the negative way, and it's so funny because all of these kind of progressive educational documentaries and information out there is meant to enlighten us, but how many times do we watch that stuff and get completely depressed and become more separated, more restrictive in our life?
Well, it's a dichotomy because I think it's important to know, it's important to be aware, but I think we're hyper aware. And when I married my husband, I was very much like so much into the New Age movement. I started when I was 8 years old. My mom started taking me to all these places. I would be meditating, sitting down on the pyramids while I was studying. She was one of just people, you know. So people would measure my aura with little gadgets, and I went everywhere with her. So that was, and I had they had energetically a lot of problems, my parents. So, but that happened from 8 all the way to until I got married at 26. And when I met my husband, our first date, the first thing I said, and he was telling me, oh yeah, I was doing this meditation. They told me to meet this guy, just a strange guy. And it was so weird. I said, oh, no, it's okay. That's your guide, you know, it's going to take time for you to know your higher self. That's what meditation was doing, you know, and he thought I was a little bit crazy, but then he embraced the whole thing. And we together explored a lot of metaphysical things, and we never immersed ourselves in bad news or anything like that. But then when our businesses started to falter and not doing so well, that fear in me prompted me. First thing was to just go back to law school. I had already a law degree from Brazil. I could not practice in the United States because in Florida they did not accept. So I had to do 2 years of law school. So prompted me to just go straight in fear mode to law school. And that was the first step that I took into darkness and heaviness, you know. So, and that's, I feel like with that, there was no reconciling. I tried to go become a holistic attorney, but there was no reconciling positive, you know, thinking and new age stuff and all area stuff with the law. So the best I could do was just like I did a lot of meditations and a practice and Buddhism a lot, Dalai Lama, all that. But I lost touch with the energy aspect of life, and I became too connected to form. And I think that now learning about quantum physics, we can change everything that's in our world, right? But we're so focused on the material aspect, which is the 0.001% of things, when everything else is energy. So the balance is difficult because you need to know what's happening in the present, but you in the world of the material world, but you have to also be grounded that everything is energy. We are energy. We are not solid. We look solid, but we're not. And I think only now this awareness came so strongly to me, especially after going through just hell that was, you know, pens for us with our daughter. It became so clear. And that's why I came across Lynn Taggart, and she talked in the book, The Field, she talked about homeopathy. And then I came across the power of 8. And then the moms, when they start talking about their desperation in the groups and everybody's saying we're going to pray, I said, would be so much more effective if we pray together at the same time, because that's what the studies that she did. And that's when everything came in my mind, you know, that just kids needed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful, Flavia, for you sharing today, opening up our group to this. Yeah, you're a definite inspiration. And I have seen it over and over again where people with a healing, you're a wounded healer, you know, you have that potential for healing. You marry into a husband that has plenty of karma for you to heal. You know, there's like, it's just, you know, the mom has a lot of brightness. It's not always the case. Sometimes, you know, both families have a lot of challenges, but there was a lot for you to heal, you know, and this journey is about really discovering, you know, being in your body and finding your embodied angel, being embodying your higher self. And that is such an inspiration. And really the story is going from one extreme to another. I wouldn't say another extreme, but miracles have happened in your life. And I do believe that you have continual offering of that to our group. So does anybody have any questions for Flavia? So next year, you know, she has this deep dive healing circle, and anybody who wants to work more on spiritual and energetic healing can do that with Flavia.
You're the one paving my path, yes. I don't know how that's going to unfold, you know. It's just I don't know. I figure, okay, there's so many attorneys out there, right? I think, okay, I have my law license in Florida. I'm in Florida. I'm going to help the immigrants. But there's so many people doing that. Do you really need another attorney working there? It's just like I want to do something that's more meaningful. I just don't know how that's going to be unfolding, but something that is higher,
Yeah.
a bigger help. I don't know.
Yeah. So wonderful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this more later in class. We're going to do the self-love group through the Deep Dive Healing Circle as well. And we're going to do that really in January before diving into more homeopathy classes. So wonderful. Well, and it is your anniversary too, despite having gone through everything. You're actually celebrating your anniversary. So I will let you go. And wonderful. Yeah, let's have more of this good energy in our group. All right, let me open up my notes here. See. Okay. I'm just gonna share with you. Hold on just a second, you guys. I think I have too many windows open on my computer. Here we go. So we're just going to go through some Q&A, and some of you did some Q&A with sending me questions through the survey, but if you have any other questions, just type them in. Most of the questions have to do with dosing. This is where people really get hung up. And I have to say that dosing was just as confusing for me when I learned homeopathy. I got like a really wonderful lecture on it from Amy Rothenberg, who gave these very specific rules, and it still didn't stick, and nor did the rules like really work for me. So you kind of just have to dive into it and start using remedies, trialing out different potencies, seeing how you feel about it, and finding what works for you too. So it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but I'll answer questions here and we'll see what more questions you guys have. All right, so the first question, somebody asked related disciplines that I recommend that you guys study. So you're learning homeopathy. If you want to deepen further, are there other areas for you to learn about? If you really are considering practicing and offering services as a healer, you know, everybody, you know, I may say, oh, do muscle testing, but no, get grounded in your sciences. So just basic, join your community college anatomy, pathology, basic science classes, or find those classes online. Some of you may find them fascinating. Some of you may find them completely boring, but they're so helpful and fundamental because people will come to you and say, I have a fistula, or I have this cyst, or I have, you know, this pain in my right inguinal region. And you have to be like, I remember that actually there was like an energy healer working with somebody who was having pain in their right inguinal region, and wasn't diagnosed, was saying that it was something that was completely off the mark, I felt. And then when I saw them, they were having a flare of appendicitis. And you needed to know that. Like you needed to know that that right inguinal region area, when it flares up, can be like a pre-appendicitis. So endocrinology, neuroscience, some of these kind of basic sciences are important and fascinating, actually, if you can get the right teacher. So I would say that. And herbal medicine, everything that you learn in natural medicine, like herbal medicine, is also very helpful and useful. So I actually was having kind of like a tummy ache, and I repertorized my symptoms, and I found that the bay leaf would be good for my tummy. And so I like made some tea out of a bay leaf, and then I'm getting the remedy and I'm drinking the bay leaf. And so herbal medicine, useful. And then energy medicine too. So my intuition wouldn't have blossomed had I not really I think, been able to step into cranial sacral classes. So somebody wrote here, MIT OpenCourseWare offers 2,400 courses online for free. Holy cow, I had no idea. Yeah, that would be great. And online anatomy, pathology, anatomy, they've got coloring books, you know, you can kind of learn and study, you know, anatomy in many different ways. Pathology, you just kind of got to dig in and study about disease. And I found pathology fascinating. I have a textbook this big and read through every page of it. You know, not that it's like super foundational if I'm only working with a small subset of kids, right? I'm not seeing most pathology complaints, but occasionally something random will show up and I'll be like, I think I know what that is. Okay. So, yeah, water dosing. Somebody just asked, water dosing and higher potencies. Is water dosing gentler and deeper? You'll find some pretty strongly opinionated people who feel like water dosing is the way to go, and I wasn't doing water dosing before, and now I'm doing it, and it's amazing. It is, like, homeopathy is kind of about changing, it's that emoto, that the structure of our water and our signaling in a way, right? And so in some ways that makes sense, and I do sometimes feel it has that gentle effect. That being said, I hardly ever water dose myself. I just don't think it's needed. I think it's the intention is just is the most powerful thing. So if I put 2 pellets in my mouth and I'm like, this is going to be deep, this is affecting my saliva and my water in my mouth, that's affecting my whole body, you know, just imagine like your mouth is water. And so when you put the pellets in, it's water dosing. So you know, water dosing is something that is useful if you're going to continue to give a remedy, and you can have the remedy in the water and you can keep it in a jar and you put the jar in the fridge. Or if you're doing LM dosing, which is a daily or a frequent dosing, or say you have an acute and you want to give it a remedy regularly, the water dosing can be really helpful. So yes, under the tongue and the lymph system, incredible. Our nerves, our circulation, our lymph system is very, very, very densely concentrated in our mouth. So it's not such a bad thing to put the remedies directly into our mouth either. But for some people, they're just like, oh, the water dosing, that's what works for my kid. And so I would say experiment with it because it's probably different for everybody. What is the best method to find a constitutional remedy? So that's a big question, right? What's the best method? So solid case taking is essentially where you start, where most homeopaths start. I personally find for me that the best method has been having people close their eyes and dive deep, meaning I'm trying to get them to bypass their mental processes and go into their more kind of subconscious body orientated feelings. So I always think that that's very useful for getting truthful, authentic information. And what I've provided to you in the Book of Life and in these classes is separating remedies out into groups, into little to family groupings of animals, plants, minerals. So that's another analytical way that you can find a constitutional remedy. You're like, oh, this person seems so minerally, or this person seems so sensitive and planty. I'm going to give a plant remedy. This feels like this needs a plant remedy. So that can be important. Understanding the whole cycle instead of just like looking at like a snapshot in time. So with Flavia, for example, and she was sharing her daughter who, you know, was covering her face. Well, then what happens after, you know, she covers her face? And then what happens after that? You know, and she goes and hides. And how long can she hide for? What, you know, what happens? And trying to create like a full understanding of the whole story is also very important. And then lastly, I listed here repetirization. I use all of these. I absolutely use all of these. And I find them all core to finding remedies. I wouldn't get so stuck on like, I need to get just the right remedy. And then you don't give a remedy at all. You know, it's just feel into it and try it. What's important is this feeling of resonance. When you're taking a case and you're like feeling into the person and you're just like, something clicks, and it's a non-verbal connection that you're making with that person. And so one of the reasons why I like having people close their eyes and feel into their body is because that's when you can really start connecting. So it's so much about the connection. And so you want to feel the connection with that person. And then you want to think, okay, you know, I'm thinking Thuya here. Thuya could be a nice remedy. And then when you're thinking that, literally that person can say to you, I feel fragile on the inside and disconnected. And they could say like a keynote for Thuya. And you're like, oh my God, well, maybe I should give this remedy, you know? And there you're having some connection, some resonance. And on some level, that person saying, yeah, that could be a useful remedy for me, you know? So it's not a one-way street where you're just analyzing the case. There's a two-way energetic exchange happening. And so being aware of that and connecting. Does that make sense? I always, I always need to do some case taking. I'm always taking in information. I'm almost always having someone close their eyes and really tell me how they feel. I'm almost always asking in my mind, what would be most suited here, a plant, animal, or mineral? And sometimes I find one of each of those categories, but I'm trying to like really feel what's most important. And oftentimes I'm like typing in small little symptoms and looking what remedies come up on my software. So maybe that wasn't a singular answer for whoever asked that question. All right. Do miasms tend to move sequentially backwards from least destructive to, from most destructive to least destructive? Okay. Yeah. Really quickly, Christy asked, what state points to an animal remedy? So we'll get to that next year. But the state of an animal remedy is animated, but behavioral. There's certain behavioral traits that really define each group of animal. And those behavioral traits we embody. You know, when you have like this spirit animal that just you resonate with, but really on some level there's like behaviors that click between you and that animal, like the birds, they're very airy and can be ungrounded and really spiritual and into music, and there are people who are like that. So you're looking for these kind of larger behavioral categories that fit the animals that fit our core nature. So I hope that makes sense. And animals are multifaceted, and there's a lot about like their instincts and their survival and how they do with that. And so that's animal too. Yeah. Any other questions on animal? We'll get to it. The animals are one of the most fun things to learn in homeopathy. There's something enjoyable about them, and when you learn about them, you literally attract those species into your life somehow, and it's a very shamanic experience to get into the animal remedies. All right, so generally, yes, miasms move from more destructive to less destructive. That's the whole point of healing, right? We want to move. So if you're trying to choose between psoric miasm and syphilitic miasm at the beginning of a case, generally choose the more destructive, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell. Like there's some remedies that seem both very psoric and very syphilitic. So even gnat floor or gnatmure, even gnatmure can be very syphilitic. They can be very cut off. They can be very shut down. But gnatmure can also be very psoric, very like simple 9 to 5, you know, basic salt of the earth person. So, so miasms, remember, is not such a black and white thing. And then if you were to say like, oh, I want to, do I give carcinosin or tuberculinum? Tuberculinum's the more destructive. It's hard to say like what's the most destructive when you're kind of choosing between some of these miasms. Somebody could have like a mild cough and need tuberculinum, but they could also have like a completely destructive skin melanoma happening and need carcinosin. And so that's a challenging thing. And of course, I'm going to say use your intuition. Right? Okay. Yeah, Zoe said, I was wondering if we are going to spend another wonderful year with you. Can this be enough to be a homeopath if we add in some medical classes like physiology? Have you thought of giving some sort of certificate? I can absolutely give you a certificate, and I did that with my last class for people. Will it give you any credibility out there? I don't know. Some people are like, I trained with Angelica, da, da, da. You know, it's not going to like necessarily give you, you know, people aren't going to be like, oh, you're a CHC certified homeopath. But yes, I can give you a certificate. And a lot of those women who took my last series of classes took classes with me, took a small handful of like philosophy classes with like Catechist or some of these other online classes. And I'm not even sure how many of them took physiology. I think they should. But some of them are in practice. And then a lot of them are doing pretty good because they totally get the physiology and the science of treating special needs kids. Like nothing trains you more, remember this, than going through it with your kids already, understanding their lymph system and their swollen glands. And moms get a die-hard training in a way that a lot of medical professionals do not. So, someone asked, yes, I'm going to do animal remedies, and I'll do some plant remedies after the animal remedies. It starts to get, plants is just this endless world. And there's core plants to know, and then there's like random plants that, you know. So I'm going to teach as long as it's pertinent for you guys to learn it. And the last class that I taught, I did minerals in the first year, and I can't remember the series how I did it, but I did the plants at the end, and it just kind of started to like fizzle out. So I am confused when to use nosodes versus other remedies. So don't differentiate nosodes from other remedies in the sense that we're always looking for a pattern to match, right? We're always just, what pattern is this? Why, how am I matching it? That said, what makes nosodes stand out? And this goes back to our class number 1, you know, which could be useful to re-listen to, which is the feeling of a nosode is that there's something outside of you coming onto you. Like it's like this like layer. Like some people, when they're closing their eyes, they describe it like slime, or like, I feel like there's this like dark cloud on me, you know? So that's a feeling to give nosodes. You give nosodes when the most problematic issue is an infection that the body is not responding to, like it's been suppressed, or you've never gotten better since having that infection, right? And remember that you can always combine intercurrently like a nosode with another remedy. So it doesn't have to be either or. Yeah, I hope those of you who took the minerals class are still kind of engaging and learning that material. It's just, there's so much depth with that. And, you know, I was just looking online at remedies from Helios, and Helios has so many mineral remedies. And the only way you're going to know how to prescribe some of them was from learning the Scholten material that I taught you last spring, this past spring. Okay. How to determine which nosode to begin with? There's so many. What about combining all the nosodes? So the point of homeopathy is to increase awareness. Okay, so what if I just took all the remedies in my dispensary and put them in a bottle and then gave them to you, would it make you get better? It would maybe do something, but the point is to learn a lesson, to create awareness, right? So maybe the awareness is I've got tons of viral infections and I just want to take every viral remedy that exists out there and like help my body fight off viruses. That's possible. But I believe that when we get specific, it helps us learn the specific lessons that we're needing to learn. So that's really helpful. Now, I broke up this series of classes into these are viruses, these are bacterial remedies, these are parasite remedies. And they all have a slightly different feeling, right? So the viruses are go, 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 information, poor boundaries, letting it all in. The bacteria are like, you know, if you use strep and staph aureus, they're kind of about self-hate and self-destruction, and then the parasites are about codependency and feeding off of and sucking off of something else. And the fungi and the yeast is kind of about like not owning your issues, like letting your fire go out, going kind of damp, spacing out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so oftentimes where I'm like, I feel like a nosode should be used here. I have my handy dandy little chart here, which I did send out to you guys at some point. I don't know if you printed it out, but it's just like bacteria, viruses, parasites, vaccines, fungal. I probably could update it, but I'm like, what does this feel like? What energy is this? And it could be, sometimes I feel like this is where sometimes I've like felt like, oh, I feel like an animal. There's some sort of energy here, and it feels like it's an infection, but this is sometimes where the entity aspect comes in from last week, where you're like, there's an energy kind of trying to come in onto this person that's like bad, but it's not in an infectious place yet. So remember that nosodes are already combined. There's BBB is a combined nosode. I made a combined nosode of all the herpes viruses at some point that we have. The Valentini flu defense is a combined nosode. So you can, if you want to make a combined formula, you can do that with Ryan. This is what's unique in being offered to you from Source Homeopathy, is that you can kind of create your own thing. Okay, dosing suggestions when using remedies for miasms as opposed to other things. So 75% of the time I give remedies in 200C. 20, maybe like less percent of the time I'm giving 30C or 1M, and a small percent of the time I'm giving 10M. Okay, so it's not that, like, you don't have that many choices you have to make in terms of potencies. Like, go with a 200C if you want to try something, and you're probably going to be okay. All right. So, and then somebody said, what about when kids need herbals if homeopathy hasn't done much? So, like what Flavia said, we were doing the homeopathy was helping. She had done a ton of herbal medicine. She needed to go to spiritual. She needed to do more of the spiritual piece to bring things in for her family. For some people, it might be going more to the herbal. Everything's on a spectrum of materiality versus energetic, and it's kind of like, where do you need to go? Do you need an axe to really hammer in, like, kill those bugs, like be more material? Sometimes the more earthy, ethereal, ungrounded people need the more material medicine sometimes, or they can't handle it at all. It's different for each case. So yeah, I would say if you're having a rough time, like finding the remedy and homeopathy is not working, you could do Unda remedies. You could do Gemo. You could do more herbals. Most people come to homeopathy because they've already tried the physical and they've tried the herbal, and the herbal is they're too sensitive to it. It's not working, right? So, you know, people already know what their sensitivity is. Okay. LM potencies. There's some homeopaths out there that are like, LM potencies are the way to go, and that was what was written in Hahnemann's 6th edition, and so this is how we're supposed to do it. I haven't found that necessarily the case. I have gone to LM potencies when I'm like, the energy is there. It's kind of like I feel like it could be treated daily in a very subtle way. It seems like it's like maybe there in the parents, but the parents aren't really going to shift out of it, but the kid needs it. Yeah, I emailed this document this morning. And yeah, so LMs I don't use a ton of the time because I feel like I'm able to use the other potencies effectively. So to use an LM potency, I generally say dilute 2 pellets in 4 ounces of water in a jar, right? You can just kind of shake it up, keep it in the fridge, and every day you just give a teaspoon. But before dosing, shake it 5 or 10 times because shaking it or succussing it is supposed to kind of increase the potency of it. That's the intention of it. So you're giving a slow, gradual increase each time that you are dosing it and shaking it. What about clearing? Do you need to go higher or stick with 200C? Oh, yeah. So that's, there is the feeling that if you have a remedy that has worked really well for it and you've used it in 200C for a long time, it's awesome just to kind of bump it up and do like 1M, 10M, and 50M to like clear it. That's that feeling of like, okay, this energy is going to no longer have any kind of resonance with my body at all anymore, right? So, yes, possibly. I would only give a remedy in these higher potencies if you feel like this is so powerful. And sometimes, if you're using your intuition, sometimes it's useful to just kind of wait till the body is ready for it, or you can kind of go for it. I'm thinking of tuberculinum for myself. That was an important remedy for my immune system, my allergies, my tendency to cough and poor boundaries. And I have taken probably 10M or 50M tuberculinum once or twice. Okay. So that's but I wouldn't say, oh, Serinum, just take all potencies of that because you think you have to, just because it's a miasm you think your family has. Look to see that there's actually a resonance and a reaction. Don't go about it mentally. My whole essence of teaching is trying to help you to do the homeopathy with feeling, with heart, and not just being stuck in your head. And I think that's how a lot of homeopaths practice, and I think it's problematic to homeopathy. So Pacana remedies uses drainage, X potencies. Yeah, Pacana, I actually was trying to get some Pacana remedies in the dispensary, but they didn't. I couldn't get a hold of them because it's hard to get them in the United States. And but yeah, it's fine. It's good. Okay. Why do some homeopaths use lower potencies and why do some use higher potencies? Why are some homeopaths so confusing? What's wrong with us? Why is it all so different? And there's such a lack of consistency, right? And I think this just frustrates people. But remember that homeopaths could have chosen we could have made 10 major potencies. It could have been 5C, 60C, 90C. Why is it that we have 30C, 200C, 1M, and 10M, and 9, 6C, 12C? There is a certain standardization that has happened in homeopathy for the purposes of simplification. Sometimes people with radionics machines or people out there, they're like, oh, I really muscle test that 500C is what I need. And you have to go out and create that 500C, So there is a standard in homeopathy, and it is standard that the lower potencies work on the more physical, and the higher potencies work on the more ethereal, and the more ethereal that you work on, the deeper you're working. Okay? So remember how much intention plays in homeopathy. So if the homeopath is like, I'm going to blast through these vaccines, like I'm just going to like get rid of them, and, you know, has this an intense feeling to it and like gives like a 1M, that person could have like literally a strong aggravation from that. Right? Whereas if the homeopath's like, I'm just going to meet the person where they're at, I'm going to feel in it, we're going to go gentle, you know, the kind of the cranial sacral that I learned was all about feeling with what the person is ready for. So it's like doing that kind of subtle dance of kind of back and forth instead of kind of push and pull. Maybe push and pull works. You know, push and pull can work with some homeopaths, more aggravations, it can still work. You can still get wonderful healings from that, right? So remember too, why are homeopaths all practicing differently? Homeopaths are drawn to homeopathy because they're out of the box thinkers. You guys are all out of the box thinkers. You're here, and so you're going to come up with your own little out of the box way of doing things too, right? And so it's so different from mainstream medicine. Mainstream medicine, you can have a robot in the office with you prescribing these things because it's all protocol, right? You spend so much money on medical school to do these protocols, you know, and it's like the essence and the soul of medicine, which is connecting to the unique needs of this person and meeting those needs, is what homeopathy offers. And so you're going to get different stuff all the time. All right. One remedy at a time. So my feeling about dosing several remedies in a day versus one remedy at a time. So, you know, the classical approach is one remedy at a time, and find the constitutional remedy. We're going to really look until we find that constitutional remedy, and that's the remedy that person's always going to need. I totally learned that school of homeopathy. I sought out that school of homeopathy, and it just wasn't the type of homeopathy that I needed to practice to help the group of people who were coming to me. If I was practicing in, you know, in a healthy community to average people, maybe that would work. So when you're dosing multiple remedies in a day, why would you need to do this? So Flavia was talking about that in the beginning of class, like she was just giving like multiple remedies because her daughter was changing. Her daughter was on the edge of psychosis, or was in psychosis, right? And there was a lot going on because the immune system had just kind of broken apart. And she was giving multiple remedies in the day, and I had to, you know, help her do that because I couldn't be the one to do that. And it helped for her. So I would say when it's really acute, when things are, you're at your wit's end, or, you know, you've got this acute situation, you know, your kid is up at night with an acute cough, and you don't want to go to the emergency room, and you're trying different remedies. You know, I had my friend Kristen, who had a kidney stone, tell her story, and I shared it in class once, and I was like giving her remedies. I hadn't have time to take a case or figure it out at the time. It was just like every 10 minutes she got a new remedy in her mouth fit for kidney stones, and by about the like 6th or 8th remedy, it was magic. It was just like she was like vomiting, white in the face, emergency room. You gave her that remedy 6th or 8th time, she was just like, it was like woo, woo, woo. She was just like, everything just went down. So yeah, if it's like acute, like try those remedies. Like it's an amazing thing when you can get it. But if you're in regular chronic, your kids in their chronic, like most of you, your kids are in they're kind of their average place. There's no reason for you to give remedy after remedy after remedy. You know, you have the capacity to give a remedy and watch and wait, you know. So do that, because the awareness that you get from that is important. And, you know, it can take time to digest what's really happening and shifting for the child, you know. And that being said, sometimes a child really, you know, their personality is in that place for a reason, you know, it's serving them. Yeah, Eva right now, like, is fitting kind of my energy, which is in this kind of calc self area. And she's super bossy, super like take charge and pointing fingers and telling people what to do. But it's her. I actually haven't given her that remedy yet, because there's a part of me that's just like, well, she doesn't really need it. Like, there's nothing wrong going on with her right now. She fits it. I get it, you know, but I don't think I'm going to try and get her out of this place, because she's doing pretty good, if that makes any sense. Is there a max number of remedies that can be given? So many moms describe flares. Yeah, a max number of remedies. And, you know, I think of my friend Kristen. You know, it was probably like the 8th remedy that we gave her that helped her kidney stone. And I probably would have gone up to 15, because the emergency room bill, which she had no insurance, was thousands of dollars. So some like cheap homeopathic remedies versus thousands of dollars on the emergency room bill, you're going to choose the homeopathic remedies, right? That being said, you kind of need to know what you're doing. So if you're just like if you have the capacity to take the time, you know, connect to your kid or connect to the situation, take a breather, and just really feel into like what's needed here, what will be of service, like what can really help here. And like, you know, try and create some perspective so that you can kind of tap into what's needed. That will really help. You know, are you just in fix it mode and emergency mode, where you just feel like your limbic brain is addicted to emergencies, and you just need to kind of say, hey, this isn't an emergency, and this isn't scary. I'm not scared anymore. So, you know, try to kind of get the bigger perspective and unhook the parts of you that are trapped in pattern thinking. Her kidney stone did totally resolve. She had such terrible kidney stones. So the previous month she had terrible pain, gone to the emergency room, came home with a huge bill. The second month it happened again around her period. We got the remedies in, didn't go to the emergency room, and she walked around with that remedy, which was berberis, in her pocket for like months after that. And sometimes she'd feel that like back pain come on, and she'd take the remedy and go away. What that remedy does, you're still passing the kidney stones. You're just doing it without pain. Okay. So, I'm almost done here. Dosing, let's see. Yeah. I think I covered it. All right. Choosing potency, does it rely on vital force? So some people have said children and old people, you should be careful, you know, their vital force is not so strong, don't push the remedies with them. And I would say there's maybe some truth with that. That being said, some kids have way more vital force than an average adult. So that's a thing that I feel very intuitive about. If you want to dose physically, choose a 30C. If you want to dose more on the mental and emotional, choose a 200C. If you're really trying to get through the ancestral pieces, choose a 1M or a 10M. So yeah, it was Berberis vulgaris, I believe. Yeah, I've always like thought about just doing homeopathy on the fly in an emergency room and how cool that would be. So, okay. So I have some notes here that I started to kind of put together for the book. It's not edited, but this is just on like my kind of core advice for getting to that intuitive part. And I partly believe that a lot of healing the purpose is to get us to this intuitive part of ourselves. It's connecting to what's authentic in us. Like Flavia said, that was so important. Once she started tapping into her intuitive healer, not relying on other people to do the work for her, that's when things really started to shift. So the first thing I have in here is healing the heart, and we've talked about that. But remembering how much we emotionally cut off when there's trauma, and that's the reverse of what we want to happen with trauma. We want to use our heart as a tool in healing. And then kids feel that disconnect. They feel the labeling that happens of them. And just developing a practice of love towards your kids. Your kids are you. So when you love your kids, you're loving yourself back too. When you love your kids, you're loving your partner back too. Right? Creating clarity of mind. So being centered in your heart and being mentally clear too. So it's really, all of us have this like capacity for these loops, this monkey mind, especially when we're completely surrounded by like culture these days. When we're in monkey mind and we're emotionally disconnected and we become critical, overcritical, our mind overpowers. Kids feel that overcritical energy. That's like a real lycopodium type of state. So we want to get out of our heads. And then we want to get centered in that. And when I say centered, literally like the central nervous system, the spine, the third eye, the pineal gland, the throat chakra, all of these glands right down our center of our middle is our center. Our uterus literally is like right in our center. So getting centered in our power is really important. And that means that we are not, like in the parasite discussion, we are not blaming others for what's happening in our life. We're not putting it out on other people. We're taking charge. And we're not like, resenting and being stuck in these negative states. That negativity is funny because negativity is this way out here, stage 17 of the periodic table. It's off balance, right? We want to be like in like silica state, be centered in our body, know who we are. And not only that, it really helps to like be centered in our body and to call on to be human means to not just be in our bodies, but to be integrating our spiritual selves, integrating our higher self, we all have an angel. We all are our angels, right? We all can connect to that part of ourselves that's connected to the larger universe. Okay, so that's so important to being human. So I would say for people who are stuck in the super self-sabotaging, destructive modes, having an inspirational practice, having a spiritual practice like what Flavia is offering. And then connecting to our higher self, I just talked about that. Our higher self isn't way up here. It isn't out there. You don't have to find it out there. It's inside. It's inside you. It's your heart. Remember, love your kid and you connect to your higher self. Okay, because that's the love, that's the spark, that starts it all. Staying in our bodies, exercising, doing yoga, being physical, the body doesn't lie. So we can muscle test because the body doesn't lie. And that's like, what an awesome thing to be able to have like a lie detector constantly on us all the time in this world of chaos and confusion. Okay. So honor your intuition, honor your sixth sense. The universe is speaking to you all the time. The universe, everything outside of us is a reflection also of our inner states. We got to do our inner work and then you'll see it reflected on the outer. And so I want to do that with my friend Sarah, who is on right here. Pull her up. Here she is. Okay. And Sarah, can you just introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Sarah B. Cervello. Thank you so much, Angie, for this beautiful, I got to see the last like 10-15 minutes, but it's really really resonating with me and exactly everything that I teach and that I believe and that I bring forth to other people as well. So thank you for that beautiful introduction to what it is that you're doing that I could hear about. It's a great transition into what it is that I'm going to be talking about. So is there anything that you want me to start with, or do you want me to just kind of
I just want to tell, so I know Sarah through a friend of ours who's a shaman, and that's your husband. And he does deep healing work, and you both do. And now you live in Hawaii, and you've got a little girl, and you're pregnant right now. And you follow your intuition to the T. If you feel it intuitively, you go with it. If your heart tells you, you go with it. And so they did this to such a degree that their intuition told them for a year to eat only off the land, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they did. They ate only off the land, just mostly fruit, and lived off the land. So Sarah and her husband Emmanuel are living representations of people who are completely choosing the messages in their heart, and, right?
Yes. We're trying anyways, right? There's always things that come in, but we, when you hear a message, you get that intuition, we just go. And sometimes it's scary. And you're like, but why? They told me to go here. And then you're like, okay, I'm going. And then finally you'll get the message as to why you're there. And, this really, really started becoming acute. And I could understand it more when I started doing this practice about 6 years ago, which is a self-love practice. And it's something that came to me actually from Dr. Emoto. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is, but he is a Japanese scientist who would study water molecules all over the world, and he would study the effects of what would happen on pretty much the consciousness of the water itself when you would have negative and or positive messages, different words and whatnot, and how that would shift and change. And so about 6 years ago, there was this video that was, going viral. You guys might have all seen it, called the rice experiment. And he did this actually experiment to prove something for children, right? So how we treat children. So he took 3 cups of rice and he put water in them. And on the first cup, he would say, thank you. And then on the second cup, he said, you're an idiot. And then the third cup, he said nothing for an entire month. And he placed this in the school. So all the kids would come by and they'd be like, thank you, or you're an idiot. And then they would say nothing to the third one. And they showed the different effects of what would happen to the rice along that month. And what happened was crazy, because the one that you said thank you to was alive and it was fermenting and bubbling and kind of had that yummy smell. And then the second one that you said you're an idiot to started to die and having a little bit of mold and kind of stinky. And then the third one, who received no attention at all, literally started dying. Okay. And his whole point of that was how we treat our children is how it's going to change them. Actually, the molecules in themselves will shift and change based off of how we are treating them. So when I saw this video, I was like, someone who's speaking my language, but was able to put it into scientific terms that people can make sense of it in a way. Although there were still a lot of people that think it's all BS. When I saw this video, I actually posted it on my Facebook, and a lot of my friends were like, this isn't science, this is a joke. I can't believe it. You can't just say, thank you or I love you and it'll change what's happening. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try it myself. So I actually took rice at home and I started doing the experiment. So I took 3 cups, but instead of saying thank you and you're an idiot and nothing, I said, I love you, I hate you, and then nothing. And within 3 days, the loved one was already bubbling and already white, right? And then the hate one was starting to get kind of moldy, and then the third one was just, slowly dying off. And then by the time those 30 days happened, it was really interesting because the love was next to the hate, and it built like almost a barrier. Like it was like it built like a teal barrier away from the hate to like protect itself from that energy. And I remember my dad he came to stay with me, and I was like, Dad, go smell these rice, right? And he's like, okay. He didn't know what I was doing. He smelled the love one. He's like, oh, it just smells like it's like fermenting like cheese. And he smelled the second one. He's like, kind of. And then the third one that received no attention smelled like death. Now, my dad is a turkey farmer, and so he smelled it. And so he smelled, dead turkeys, manure, the whole nine. He goes, oh, what is that? And I was like, that is a cup of rice after 20 days of not receiving any attention at all, either hate or love. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, I have this all on videotape. Every single day I would tape this. Now, alongside of this, about 3 days in, I received a message during my meditation that you have to do this upon yourself, because the body is made of 60 to 75% water, right? So if the body's made of 60 to 75% water, depending on where you are in your life, how are your water molecules going to shift and change in your body? And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. So what I did was I took my phone onto video mode. I turned it so I could see myself, and I would record every day. I made a commitment. I said I would record every single day, and I would say, I love you, Sarah. And then I would allow that feeling sensation of love to come through my body. And then I would allow myself to just speak whatever was coming up. So whatever feeling sensations, what happened that day, kind of like, this is coming through. Or, I remember the first time I was like, this is feeling kind of weird. And I think I started crying. I was like, what's happening to me? Why is this, what's going on? And I did this. I ended up doing this for an entire month. And over that month, my life started to dramatically shift and change, not only on the emotional level, but the molecular level. And everything started coming up. Everything that wasn't in that space of love would come to the surface. And all of a sudden, everything that wasn't in alignment with my higher self and in my truth, like, would come to the surface and literally would happen in the videos. Because the thing is, as you talk to yourself, you see yourself, you can't lie, and you can't go, oh yeah, this is happening. You see it all over your face, and you're like, oh shit, I'm trying to lie to myself that I feel good, and I actually just, this is really effing bugging me, And so it really became this video diary to oneself, but also this healing mechanism of actually being able to speak truth and to really start to understand who you are, what was in alignment in your life, what was not in your alignment with your life, and to bring in that positive, loving energy and to forgive oneself and to accept oneself for who they are and where they are right now, not, looking towards the future and going, I need this, I need that, or this is what happened. It's like, I got to love myself right now, no matter what has happened in my life. I've got to choose me. I got to choose this. And, for a long time, for myself, I thought I was good. I thought I had this confidence. I was great. And underlying all that was a lot of different issues, a lot of different underlying, whether it was from childhood, whether it was from, in womb time, whether it was from just what I was doing at the moment or the relationships I was in. It really forced me to look at everything and be like, is this really in truth and alignment? And like, okay, now how do I move through this? How do I do this in the space of love? And how do I take responsibility for myself and for all the actions and everything that has happened in my life? And so in that month, my life dramatically changed. It was just the start. It was just the start of something that became much bigger. And I had no idea at the time that experiment that I did on myself would affect thousands of people. And after doing that, one of the things that it took me a very, very long time to actually share this message, because during those times, self-love was kind of like a joke. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to share this with the world. They're going to see this like compilation video of me saying, I love you to me. And I remember the day that I posted it on YouTube and on Facebook. I literally got this like crazy migraine. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And closed the curtains and went to bed and posted it and said, okay, whatever will happen. And I woke up the next day to about 40 emails and messages and people reaching out to me saying, you know, I finally feel like I'm not alone. I finally feel like this is something that I can do to help myself, to get out of my depression, to get out of this loop, this trauma, this pattern that I've been in for a long time. And so this sparked something bigger, and it became a Facebook community. And then within like 2 or 3 months, we had about 5,000 to 6,000 people. And then it became an app, and then I wrote a book, and it just sparked into this movement of people really taking the time to love and accept who they are and to understand what love is, because most of us don't understand what love is, but to really bring back that space in the heart, to open their heart, to open their light, to open their truth, to really step into who they are. And so since then, it's really just shifted and changed my life. I was able to, you know, get out of a relationship that I was in that was tumultuous for 10 years, understanding the gift, understanding why that person was in my life, and then be able to leave in a good way, to then shortly finding the love of my life and having a baby like a year later, and then just completely shifting and changing and moving from that state of confusion of like Angie said, not being centered and not knowing exactly what it is that you have to do, but to go, oh, okay, like as long as my heart is open and the love is there and I can be clear with oneself, then I'm going to have the direction of where I need to go. And that really started this process, this deeper process of healing. And then that started, you know, moving into motherhood and how to bring love, even when you're pregnant, to that belly and to all the amniotic fluid, and to change the vibration in your womb to that space of love so that baby can feel it, and connecting your heart with the baby's heart. And then going from that to just all the trials and tribulations that come up, just having a kid and becoming a mom and what that feels like, and accepting that new life and being okay with being a mom, right? And not having any sleep, to, you know, just anything that can come up, especially postpartum, and the fears and the anxieties and the worries. And when we don't know what to do when our kids are going crazy, or you're up all night and you haven't slept, and how to bring back that, take that 5 minutes a day to come back to oneself, to remember that as long as we can start filling our cup and taking care of oneself, then we can really be able to do that with the other people. And just like Angie said, showing that love to our children, showing that love to our partner, that resonates within ourselves too, right? So within that, you know, having children and then moving into this lifestyle that we're in now, where, you know, we received the message that we had to move to Kauai. And once we got here, like, you must eat from the land, you must live and eat from the fruits and the veggies here, and it will help you heal. And that's exactly what it did. It helped us even more clear, more on the physical level, change the molecules. So through our intestines, through our, you know, arteries, through our different organs, really cleansing and purifying and changing all of that to that space of love. And so now one of the most beautiful things that I love to do is to help other people, and to help especially moms. I'm a doula as well, and so I take care of a lot of women preconception, and then during pregnancy, and then postpartum, and to deal with these different emotions that are coming up, and to help the moms and help the divine feminine to come into that space, and to remember who we are as mothers, and to hone in that mother love energy. I mean, Kauai is like, they call this the great great grandmother, right? So she just comes in and she holds you in that arm, in her arms, and holds that divine space for you to know that you're not alone. Because as moms, we feel like we have to do it by ourselves. Like we can do it, we can be strong enough, and we can receive that help and that love from other people, from nature, from earth, from other messages. And it's really brought that in and brought that home. And yeah, and that is in an essence kind of the story of self-love and where I am now. And I'm now 28 weeks pregnant, so really excited about this new baby and living in this new way, and how that can shift and change. And just as a side note, I grew up in a family where my oldest sister is mentally disabled, and she actually became that at about 6 months. My mom doesn't really know quite, but I'm pretty sure she had a seizure, and then kind of everything happened. So our whole life was around helping Melissa. And what's really, really beautiful about this was that, my sister was the only planned birth of our entire family, my only planned birth of my parents. And she came out and she had a disability, a mental disability. And she's challenged, my mom and our family, and brought in this unconditional, deeper kind of love that you could ever imagine. Even with all the trials and tribulations and all the stuff that, my parents had to go through, and just as, siblings, like how we have to be with, with our sister, and understanding her mental state, and when she's not here, when she's going crazy or having different things happen, like how do we as kids like handle that, right? And one of the biggest things that it taught me was like, no matter what, I had my sister's back. So no matter whatever was going on with her, back in the day, you guys probably had this too, there's a lot of, and there still is now, bullying. And I remember, like, we were on the bus and some kids started throwing food at her, and me and my sister got up and we're like, we're gonna beat you. You can't do this to my sister, like, she's not, like, you can't do this. And that was one of the things that really brought me into that strength of like, it is not okay to treat other people in this way, right? And so one of the things that I think later down on the road, once I started this practice of self-love, my mom started to understand and see that she needed to do this as well, because it was really hard for her. It was really hard for her growing up. And still, till this day, my sister came into her life to really mirror and up level her to a space of even more unconditional love in her heart, and how she can just, what do I want to say? Be her true self, be in her truth, and how to do that in a loving way. And yeah, it was a lot, but
Well,
it's all a part of the.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful story. Do you guys have any questions for her? So what I would love to do, and I just had this feeling of, Sarah came out to Ashland earlier this fall, and I was like, oh, I need to get her in as a guest speaker, but I wanted her in this last class because I want to use her practice as a way to bridge into 2020. 2020. And so we're going to have a group healing for our group, or some sort of a group together starting in January for the 4 weeks, for the 30 days, and probably have meet up at this same time for maybe 5 weeks. Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah. So normally when I do, so I started doing 30-day self-love group classes. And so a lot of people were doing this practice on their own, but one of the things that started happening is there's different things that can come up in this process, and having that support, having that guidance, having other sisters or people around you can help you stay accountable and also help you work through what's coming up. And so I created a program that actually is going to help week by week go through what's happening. There's going to be teachings to meditations to also also just like as we're on the Zoom call, we're going to be doing different work on people. So we'll actually go through what's happening and work through it. So people are going to be able to gain the tools and the knowledge of how to work through the different energies and the different stuff that are coming through, the patterns, and how to break that through using this practice. And so we take, it's 30 days, it's actually 31 days, and it takes about 5 weeks to do.
Yeah, someone asked, this isn't just for women. It's for guys too.
It's for everyone, even kids, even children. I had my daughter go, "I love you, Isa." You know, like it can be for everybody, but yes, for guys too.
Yeah. Wonderful. So are you guys excited? Are some of you guys going to do this? It's our whole group doesn't have to do this. I'll have like a separate sign up and we'll do it within the deep dive healing circle for January, like kind of leading right into Valentine's Day. And we're so lucky to have somebody like you, as full as your life is with having a baby coming. And so as much as you've blessed us today, I hope that we can be a blessing to you and really be a part of this healing circle that we have as women right now. So lots of love. Do you guys have any questions for Sarah? All right, cool. So we'll structure that and I'll put that up online. You know, a lot of this work also, the shamanic work, the self-love work, the homeopathy, it all really intersects. So like somebody wrote that, like paper remedies. Remember, I recently had Sarah write the name of a remedy down to help clear an infection in her foot. And that's the same idea as the emoto of like changing kind of the molecules in your body. Is you just have the name of something written down and you have it on your body, or you put it over water and then you drink the water. That word carries vibration, carries power. And so we can also do that, you know, with whatever kind of comes up. We can kind of see what it is. We can transform it. You know, in homeopathy, we try to, you know, find what resonates to help it release, help whatever's stuck release. So there will be a lot of overlaps in the work that you do with us, Sarah.
Yes, it sounds very in alignment and very synchronistic. And I have to tell you, you know, I kept that piece of paper in my pocket, and, you know, I felt the energy come on and like kind of like take over what was happening. So I was like, this infection's not going anywhere. What's happening? And she was right on the money with it. You were really, really on point with the energy of what was actually happening and how to transform that. So, you know, that is in super alignment. And we do that kind of work with this class as well. I don't give, you know, homeopathy remedies, but different affirmations and such can come through to help us in this process, and it's in perfect alignment. I just want to say thank you guys so much for hearing and allowing me to share this truth and to share this practice, and to, you know, hopefully see you guys in the new year. It's going to be a really, really juicy class because I'm going to be in my 3rd trimester, and so all that baby creative energy, mother energy is going to be in. And I just want to share too that every month program that I do and the different people, something unique happens in every single one, and it's all changes, right? So people think, oh, it's going to be like this, or I'm going to find this, and the different energies come in to take over to really help us all as almost like, I see it as like a boat, right? So we're all on this boat together, and we take this ride together, and we don't know if we're going to go over this wave or we're going to get caught in a hurricane, or be in the sunshine or the rainbow or whatever, but we're all in it together, and it's going to be really beautiful with this birthing energy, the new year, the rebirthing of oneself. And so I'm really excited to to do this with you guys and to do this with you, Angie. So thank you so much for
Um,
bringing it forth.
Before we end this class, I'm gonna like just go over some logistical stuff, but I would love, Sarah, for you just to do like kind of like a short meditation into self-love for our group before you go off today, if you're open to it.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
love to. Okay,
We'll all
cool.
close our eyes with you.
All right, so if everyone could close their eyes, place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale out through your nose. Allowing any thoughts, emotions, fears, everything to just go through. Really tuning in to your own heart. Listening to that heartbeat. Now with your other hand, feeling your belly, your second heart, your gut, your intuition. Now from your heart to your belly, connecting that heartbeat, bringing all that love from your heart, sending that to your belly, allowing your belly to fill up with all that love. If you're having trouble seeing what that love means, it can just be light, it can just be the feeling of sun on your body, or just that warm smile when your partner or kid looks at you. And we're going to transfer that love, that feeling sensation back into your heart. Filling your heart up. Now asking oneself, how am I doing? How are you? Saying these 3 words, I love you, and your name. I love you. I'm here for you. Listen, to understand, to see everything you've been wanting to show me, everything you wanted me to receive. I am open to receiving all the love and all the gifts. To see how amazing and beautiful that I am. Allow yourself to sit with those. Taking deep breaths in, deep breaths out. If anything's coming up, allowing yourself to feel it and to move through it. If you're not feeling anything at all, that's okay too. Just taking these times of silence and tuning in with your heart. Now we're going to open our arms as wide as you can. Physically, literally, open your arms up. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Put a smile on your face. And now wrap those arms around your body, giving yourself that big hug, saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I love you. And then you can release when you're done.
Yay, thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
I'll let you go, and you guys will
Okay.
get more doses of Sarah in the new year. Something to definitely look forward to. Thank you, Sarah. You are love and such a sister. So, mwah, kissing you.
Wow, thank you guys. Have a beautiful holidays.
Bye.
Bye, Angie.
All right, you guys, yay. So, you guys feeling good about that? Self-love. It's going to be pretty easy, and I do believe it's homeopathic, and it's going to change, really take 2020 to the next level. So I have some dates here, but don't write them down. I'm going to put them up out there, but I just want to share with you, like, my general plan is to get started with the self-love group on like keep our Sunday times, because these Sunday times are really good. They work for a lot of people. I don't want to figure out another time. And so we'll do that starting January 12th. That feels like, you know, holidays are over. We can kind of get started with that. And then it'll like lead right into Valentine's, and we'll have a lot of juicy energy for Valentine's. I'll have a separate sign up for that, because not everyone may not want to do that. The animals class, I'm going to just start right after we finish the self-love group sometime in February. And what I like to do is do it every other week. So it'll space out the time to kind of integrate the information. As you guys can sense, I am teaching you a ton of stuff, right? So I almost feel like it was a lot, you know? So every other week to kind of integrate it probably would be a good thing. Not everybody is taking homeopathy as seriously. So if you're not taking it as seriously, you can do just the animals classes. If you want to take it seriously and really start taking cases this coming year, then we're going to we're going to do animals class every other week, and then clinical cases alternating every other week. So back and forth. The clinical case study group, you're so awesome, Abby. Abby made an appointment with me. She's like, can you help me figure this out? And I want to do, and I'm like, I know you're bringing this to me because you're so representing the collective here. So I know that some of you, you're not going to make the use out of this information unless you start practicing. And you just got to do it. You got to start taking cases. I'm not completely sure how I'm going to structure it. I think that for sure we're going to be doing it so we'll meet every other week, and what I'd like for you to do is start taking paper cases and maybe even recording some of your case taking and sharing it with the group. So Zoe said maybe we shouldn't use Facebook as a forum. I think that's a good idea, partly because we're going to be sharing personal information of cases. So that group might just be email and Zoom meetups, you know, with like us shooting back and forth stuff over email with each other. Does that make sense? It's not like the big thing is keeping stuff anonymous. You don't want to take someone's case and have it show up on Facebook and then they find out, and like, that's just not fun. So does that sound good to you guys? Like kind of like doing that, kind of alternating. And then the retreat. Okay, and so this is an opportunity for us to meet up. I scheduled this because I just had the intuition to after I had the class with Veer. I was like, this is such a fun-loving guy. He's got all of the same energy that he wants to offer. And then his wife is like this total amazing performer, healer, and they live in Los Angeles. Why I'm doing a Joshua tree One, Los Angeles is a place that's easy for most people to fly to. If you were to fly to Ashland, you'd have to take at least 2 flights, okay? Los Angeles, New York, Miami are kind of our good places, you know, maybe San Fran. And then it's 2 hours from LA. You know, you're thinking, oh, that's kind of far, but it's really, it gets you out of the city and into a beautiful place. And most places, you're going to have to drive a while to get to a decent place from a major airport, right? So most people who've come to my retreats have like registered, and then we have a Facebook group for the people coming to the retreat, and then people organize car rentals, and we all come and we meet up. And I have this schedule for what we're going to do, but we kind of go with the flow. And what I did is I rented a whole building that has 25 beds. A lot of the beds are shared, so it's not going to be a fancy retreat. Okay, it's like sister sorority. You're like sleeping in a room with like other people in it. Right? So if you want your own privacy, you want your own private room, we might need to figure something else out. Let's see, I booked this like Integratron. So there's this really unusual building that this guy in Southern California like received the instructions, kind of like Noah's Ark. Like he received the instructions on how to build this building, and it's meant to like align our energies. And they do these sound healings in it, and it's called the Integratron. And it's only 15 minutes from where we're going to be staying. So we're going to do this like awesome sound healing there too. And Stephanie, do you guys know Stephanie Witzel of Sacred Alchemy? So she lives in San Diego. She's going to come up. The weekend that it's happening is this weekend called Bhakti Fest, which is Southern California is all about yoga. It's a huge yoga festival happening too. So if you're into yoga, you could come to the retreat and then go to Bhakti Fest. The retreat is planned for arrival on Thursday night. Stay Thursday night, get settled in, and starting all day Friday, all day Saturday, up until some point on Sunday. I'm ending it on noon on Sunday, mostly because people start to leave on Sundays usually because they want to get back home by Monday, right? So, let's see, what else did I want to say? Bhakti Fest. It starts, I think, that Saturday or that Sunday and goes to the following Wednesday or Thursday. So you could actually come to my retreat and then go to this huge yoga festival too, which is what Stephanie's going to be doing. And it's this yoga festival that's really all about chanting. So it's like, that could be like a crazy transformational experience if you wanted that. Let's see, Ryan, did he send out invoices? Yes. Ryan and I are pretty like, we have so much going on. He will resend out invoices. I think most of you have paid, but some of you partially paid and we needed to send the invoices more. Well, whatever invoice you get is for the whatever it is that you haven't paid up to. It was $450. And then for some of you, you're doing a little bit of a sliding scale. I want to share with you, I like got the intuition to start a website for the intuitive healing retreats. So I will, let me just share with you the website. So it's www. Here it is, intuitivehealingretreats.com. And this is the schedule. And you can kind of read through it, but you know, things are going to shift. It's not really just a homeopathy retreat. It's more of like an energy medicine retreat. It's about intuition. $675 before January 31st. This is a good price. Every retreat I've done has been more than this. So I'm giving you guys a good price, partially because the accommodations I got were not too expensive. And then after January 31st is $825. I have to say that this coming week, Veer is going to start advertising this, and there's only 25 spots. So if you're like yes, let's do it. Let's meet up. Let's go. Please register sooner than later. You'll get this early bird price. Plus, I have no idea. Veer is like super popular on the web and like he's got like a million bands going on and I have no idea. This could like all get filled up or maybe not. We'll see. So you could just register here. Once you register, then I will email you an invoice for the retreat. I'm not doing like kind of like partial payment here or there because it's just been so hard and confusing. I'm giving you guys a good price. So yeah, talk online. You guys know each other. This is like such a good opportunity to meet up. Any questions you guys have? Look at this nice website, so sweet. And you guys feeling good about like the scheduling for next year and doing like all that? That feels good to you guys? Let's see, yeah, yes, anything else? Oops. Okay. Can we take the cases of our family? Totally, you can take whatever cases that you want for the clinical class. You know, the clinical class, I don't know what I'm going to charge for it. You know, I kind of feel like we should do some version of sliding scale, but there should be some sort of minimum that's contributed because it can be, you know, to some degree when you submit a case, I'm going to be reviewing it and giving my feedback, and other people hopefully will be reviewing it and giving feedback. And during when we meet up, we'll talk about those cases. So yeah, we'll see. I kind of want it to be really, truly, if you're really taking homeopathy seriously and you want to become a homeopath, do the clinical cases. All right, you guys, anything else? We all good for the night? Okay, I'll stop the recording.